Hey everyone in LinkedIn land, it's Jen Frazier, your host of another episode of UnTangled. I'm the CEO and founder of Firefly Partners, and I've been doing, nonprofit, tech, craziness, good stuff, all amazing work for the last 18 years, shockingly. And we started up this little LinkedIn live show just to talk to different folks in the space and hear more about what's going on and digital and AI and the social good space. Lots of conversations are happening out there. So I'm just finding really cool and interesting people to talk to and hopefully provide a little bit of insight, a little bit of, what's happening on the ground so you all can learn about different perspectives in the world about what's happening. So today I'm joined by the lovely and wonderful Ryann Miller, the principal and founder of Spark and Signal and of many other trades. But Ryann, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah. Today, we're going to talk about what nonprofits should think about doing before you start using AI. We like that. Don't just dive in. That pool looks really tempting and the water looks nice and warm before you dive in and get fully immersed. There might be some sharks under the surface, just perhaps. So, Ryann, I like to just let my guests tell a little bit of your backstory and how you got here, and then we'll dive into the meat of the topic.
I would be happy to. Thank you for having me, Jen. It's absolutely a pleasure. My name is Ryann Miller. My pronouns are she, her. And Jen, as you said, I am the founder of Spark and Signal. And what I do at Spark and Signal is essentially digital and AI strategy for nonprofits across primarily North America, so the US and Canada. I have been in this sector for over 20 years. I'm not sure exactly, but 20, 21, maybe 22, something like that. Actually, Jen, you and I met, I think in the very early days of you, because I feel like you and I have known each other for at least 15 years,
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And so it's really nice to kind of still be in touch. It's nice to still be kind of like collaborators and friends in the space. And it's really a pleasure to be here. I have spent the vast majority of my career working in small boutique kind of agencies, firms, companies whose entire missions are to help and serve nonprofits.
Mhm.
And so what it means is that I've had a wonderful kind of vantage point, not being really kind of deep inside the nonprofit, but able to see kind of what's going on and have also a lot of kind of comparative focus. And so what I have done in my various places of work, including Care2 and Donor Trends, and Grass Riots, and a couple other places, is really focus on, I mean, in the early days, we called it e-philanthropy, and then we called it multi-channel fundraising, multi-channel marketing.
Yeah.
But basically, I've worked at the intersection of digital fundraising, marketing, advocacy, and engagement, organizational change,
Mhm.
and basically kind of strategy and strategy work in the nonprofit sector. And what I'm doing now at Spark and Signal is taking a lot of the lessons learned, both kind of hard fought and not so hard fought, from my 20 plus years doing basically kind of digital and digital strategy work, and focusing that on AI, but not AI as opposed to digital, but AI including digital, and
Right.
essentially kind of from an evolutionary point of view. And so what I do is not at all the technical implementation. I'm not your girl if you're like, we need to build a custom agent. What I
We've got
do,
people for that.
yeah, but there are people for that, absolutely. And
Lots
I
of
think
people for that. We can talk about that another. That's another show. Yeah.
yeah, there's I think I'm a big fan of kind of the sort of 360-degree view and perspective
100%.
and context and frameworks. And I think one of the things that I like to say up front is that I'm not your girl to build an agent, but it is helpful to look at the kind of steps in the process and
Mhm.
the people, vendors, agencies, and the kind of subsector, I don't know, kind of like companies and types of jobs and basically kind of types of career and professions who can fill those roles. So the role that I fill is really helping leaders and teams kind of figure out where they are and what to do next and how to make decisions and how to implement basically a kind of decision and practice layer so that they can make good decisions, so that they can figure out kind of like what to buy, what not to buy, who to hire, who
Right.
not to hire, what they need to do next. So it's really kind of strategy, governance, and like this kind of like operational practice layer that really kind of comes before and during, doing AI.
Yeah, I mean, so critical. I think that it's really, really refreshing, and I love your framing. As we have talked about with different guests here too, there's a lot that we've gone, straight into tools that people have already built, and they're like, but that's my hope and my goal with the show is to really talk about that whole picture and the whole journey from I'm interested. Like things are obviously evolving at 150,000 miles an hour. I'm not sure, whatever. Wherever people are on that space, even folks, I would say this is folks are out there. You've already feel like you've kind of maybe gotten the cart a little bit out there before your horse is really even ready and things like that. That's also fine. But like you kind of say there's things to be paying attention to on multiple levels and layers of this kind of journey we're all on. So it's never, I think, too late to stop and be like, hey, I don't know that I did enough of this pre thinking before I was like, I'm swimming, the Kool-Aid is amazing. And then you're like, wait, I feel like I'm in a riptide right now. And I'm like, hold on. And then you're like, I need to get back to shore. I'm getting way too far out to sea and I don't know what I'm doing or whatever. And then you're like, there's still a safety raft. We can still bring you back and you can still sort of go, great. It's cool that you went out there and also maybe not go all the way back to shore, but at least come back closer to shore and make sure that you're doing some of the things you just talked about, even if you didn't do them before you went out to surfing and were like, whoa, I'm out here. So tell us more like how you approach or sort of like let's just dig in a little bit to your sort of your methodology or approach or sort of like how do you handle people that are like obviously there's a bunch of people who haven't even gotten out into the water yet. That's fine.
Yeah.
But then I'm assuming there are also people who I just talked about who are like kind of out in the ocean and are like, whoa, I'm raising a white flag. I need to come
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, I think what you're talking about, and first of all, like I am a metaphor and analogy girly, so I'm here for it. So like continuing with that thread, I think every organization has some people who are still on
Yeah.
the beach and are like, I am
They're
staying
like
on terra firma,
staunchly on the beach.
and I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Like
Some
what
people are in the car in the parking lot.
yeah, exactly. Or like not, I don't want to be on this trip at all. I big picture when it comes to AI, I
Yeah.
am much more skeptical than
Oh,
I am not. Like I'm like the Mark Zuckerberg move fast and break things. I take the literal opposite approach, and for what it's worth, also want to live my life and execute my career. It's sort of like a
yeah.
what does he do? I'm going to do the opposite. Sort of like a. So
That's
I'm
not the worst worldview, in my opinion. Okay, just saying.
I I take a very kind of skeptical, critical, but also creative and also
Mm,
like empowered and progressive, like progressive
yeah,
values and ethics,
yeah.
empowered view towards all of this. So
Mhm.
for the people who are still in the car and for the people who are still on the beach and who are like, I'm not going in that water, I'm here for you. Like I get that. And there's a lot of points typically that where I'm like, I do not disagree. We have to try and find a way for us all, for everyone in the organization who's somewhere kind of like from the parking lot to like out there in deep waters to actually kind of have a shared language and be
Yeah,
speaking the same language and to be kind of working collaboratively on a system and a process that actually does work well for everyone. So I would start by saying that in every organization there's people in the car, there's people on the beach, there's people in the shallow end of the like part of the water, and there's
yeah.
people absolutely out in the deep end. And for all the people in the water, there some of those people have life jackets on and some of them don't at all. So you can
Like,
be in the water in the deep
out
end.
there.
Yeah, you can be in the
Yeah,
water and in the deep end, and there's still a huge qualitative difference between whether you're wearing a life jacket or not. Like whether you're aware of the risks and
yeah,
behaving appropriately with those risks, like with a kind of like risk tolerance, risk awareness, and appetite, and like making decisions with those things in mind
yeah.
versus not at all, right?
Right.
So what I do is, and I should also say, I'm interrupting myself, of course, but I should also say that I go in and I see, and I say this like honestly with like empathy and love. Every organization has these people kind of like from the parking lot to the deep end.
Oh yeah.
not all organizations uh, are are as aware of that as I am, but that's because of this.
Mm,
Like one of the nice things about like my career, and I honestly think it's like scratches an ADHD kind of like itch, is the
yeah.
comparative focus. I love being able to work with more than one organization and more than one at a time so that I can bring a kind of bigger perspective. I get to come in and say, hey, it's not you, it's everyone. So don't
Right.
worry about that. That's not a bad thing. This is reality. And also here are the things
Yeah.
that are working for other organizations, and here are the things that like I'm picking up from, like I've got my kind of like antenna out everywhere. I'm picking up and I'm like bring to you and your organizations. So number one,
Yeah.
I think it's really important to acknowledge that there are, when it comes to AI, there's a huge range of feelings that people have and a huge range of opinions that people have, and then also there's a range of actual kind of like experience and
Yeah.
like kind of tolerance and appetite.
100%.
And those things range a lot, and they mess with the kind of the culture, like they mess with like the environment, because these are often things that we don't talk about. There are good reasons why a lot of staff at or nonprofits don't want to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I see is between kind of like leadership layer, leadership management,
Hmm.
and staff executing work, there's a big kind of discrepancy or difference between being kind of in favor of AI versus kind of like critical, skeptical, not wanting to move forward. And so
Yeah.
there are lots of people who want to, there are people who want to use AI but aren't sure how. There are people who want to use AI but don't want to tell their boss because they're worried that they're actually going to be teaching the robot how to do their job, and then the countdown is on until they're going to get let
Right.
go.
So,
Like we
right.
need to be able to talk about these things kind of out loud
Hmm.
and with an understanding of our organization, our values, our mission, and our actual kind of culture, like the way that we work, make a plan for those things, because we are all in this together. Like there's no, this is it. There's no, you know,
We were just talking about that. I mean, there might be other channels, but we're not on them. This is our channel,
exactly.
and this is where we are.
Exactly. Like, are there infinite universes? Yes. But are we living in this one? Also, yes.
Yes. So here we are. Let's do this. So I think some of the things that we talked about before was sort of the idea of like challenges. Obviously, you spoke to several of them. There's all these different layers happening inside an organization, all these different perspectives, all these different feelings and emotions about it. How do you help an organization navigate through very, disparate
Yeah.
layers like that between
Yeah.
like obviously there's a lot of fear, there's excitement, all these skepticism, blah blah blah, ethical concerns. How do you start to even get those conversations going in a thoughtful and productive way? I think there's a lot of tendency to I'm seeing just a lot of
Yeah.
swirling.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
help? How do you help like pull a thread and be like, okay, hey,
Yeah.
everybody, calm down. We're going to get on the same page and move it
Yeah.
forward. How do you approach that?
Yeah, for sure. I think sometimes I could say chaos. Sometimes I would say like uncertainty, or
Yeah,
just like a lot, or
yeah,
like busy or noisy is another one that I use. I think that the thing that I do first is try and kind of like name the thing that is easy for me to name because I'm the outsider, right? Like I want to also acknowledge that like when you come in as a consultant or as a facilitator, as a third party, you are coming in with a kind of privilege. I can speak for some staff people, both leadership and management, and also not
right.
leadership and management, where they kind of can't for various reasons, but I can.
Yeah,
And I say that with, I do this with care, like a respect and a care. Like I'm not going in and trying to kind of like hurt people's feelings, or say things that are like
right.
problematic. I want to come in and name things so that we can actually kind of, as everyone can start speaking the same language and basically kind of like get on the same page. So the work that I do, number one, I try and give things names that we
Mhm.
typically kind of like feel and live, but don't actually have words for. So I'm using this, I don't know, a phrase or a title to try and capture a lot of the work that I do, which is AI decision and practice architecture, which sounds possibly like, I don't want it to sound complicated. I actually really want it to sound simple, but
No.
what I'm talking about is like before we buy the tools, before we make decisions like let's use AI for this, or like we're already a Microsoft shop, so let's like we've got the kind of like free or cheaper layer of Copilot, but let's spend more money and get everyone kind of seats, even though it's going
Yeah.
to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. Before we do that, and I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying before we do that and alongside, but especially
Yes.
now, before we do that, let's talk about how the organization makes decisions, what kind of basically like according to mission and values of the organization, what is important. So I can give some examples. Like number one, I think it's really important to do some orientation, like the kind of AI continuum. Where are you in your organization, right? Like
Yeah.
are you or like and I have a framework where I kind of lead people through that. That lets people I see people kind of like relax physically when we go through that. I also go through a little bit of like what is AI, what isn't AI, because the truth is AI is already here and we're already using it. It's already in everything. It's already in
So
a
many
lot of things that we use. Whether or
ways.
not we know it, whether or not we like it, whether or not we've actually kind of like toggled the switch on or off, right? Like Google
Right.
Maps. And so there's a lot of predictive based AI in a
Yeah.
lot of the very basic kind of tools and tech and platforms we use, and then more and more kind of generative AI as well. So we talk about what it is and what it isn't. We talk about kind of like psychological safety and like some kind of
Mhm.
norm stuff. We also talk about the mission and values of the organization so that people can figure out what is important to them and what isn't. And that lets us then go through basically a kind of like, let's make some decisions about actual AI projects, pilots, what can and should our organization do versus not do. Basically,
Right.
kind of like throw a whole bunch of things at the wall, and with a framework and structure that I lead people through, figure out, using AI, whether it's Copilot, whether it's ChatGPT, whether it's
Mhm.
like, regardless of the tool, I'm less use this tool, use don't use that tool.
Right. Right. Right.
I'm much more like if we first ask why, why do
Right.
we some people are like let's use AI for the thing, and I'm like first let's ask why, and then let's also make sure that it fits the kind of the values and the purpose and the workflows, and then also the governance layer, who's going to be in charge, who needs to know decisions before and after, who do we want to share this with, and
Mhm.
how will we kind of turn this into there's an operational layer, but also a sort of a governance and a strategic layer. And what I mean is, when we do pilots, what I like to do is lead organizations through all of that stuff that I just talked about. But then
Mhm.
also, when we do pilots, let's set up a structure in advance so that there's kind of sharing and translating and copy pasting into other teams and departments. And so that we can then think about, do we want to scale this? Right? Like
Yeah.
what did work, what didn't work, and can if we did try a project using whatever tool it was, whatever kind of process or workflow or efficiency thing, if it worked well for one person or one team or one group, can we then expand it to three more and in a way that is safe,
Right.
ethical, responsible, aligned, etc.
All those
So
things. Yeah.
it's that's essentially kind of the work that I try and do. And what it does is take that chaos, that swirl that you
Yeah.
talked about, and really kind
Helps.
of like,
Yeah.
yeah, and it makes it like okay, like it makes it much more kind of like day to day tangible, like right, of course, let's make the work for us, not us feel completely overwhelmed by it.
Yeah. Because it can
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
feel very overwhelming. It's
so
it's
overwhelming,
exciting. You get in there and then you're like, oh wow. Okay,
so
great.
overwhelming.
Great.
I mean, for
Yeah.
me
Move
too,
on.
right? Like it's
Yeah.
I'm not above the like the real life of it all, but
Right.
I do also have some like kind of sort of like mental health hygiene tips. Like one of them is like don't try not to read all the like AI headlines, or if you are going to read the headlines, apply a very critical, like a media literacy critical lens. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, because the
Hmm.
headlines are all like AI is going to save everybody, or like AI is going to ruin
Oh,
everything.
and
It's like
everything. Yeah.
it's very overwhelming.
Yeah. It's obviously like these are all hypey things. I definitely feel like I want to tell people to mostly not pay attention truly to
Yeah.
most of that. But I think you've pointed out some really interesting and helpful things for listeners to be kind of like, and then I want to help break it down even more. Like, okay, great. What are some like maybe concrete next steps people can do, even just on their own? I think this is a big one where I think there's a lot of so different than traditional technology or software that you buy and things like that. I think
Yeah.
that the really big, I really am like, same thing. I'm like, it's digital and AI are not, you can't be like, well, we do digital and we do AI. I'm like, well, they're literally the same thing right now. So you can't really separate these things.
Yeah.
because it is also just infused and embedded in really, at this point, pretty much every tool that
Yeah.
you are using in the world. But in the olden days, like, 2024, you used to be able to like buy a piece of software, add an organization, and then it would be like, there'd be a plan and there'd be like a rollout and a blah, blah, blah. And there'd be like some little bit of adoption and whatever, but it was a little bit of a controlled
Yeah.
entry into a thing. And so it would
Yeah.
be, it felt a lot more like containable and whatever for an organization. But now it's like, it's the ability for everyone to access. And also because AI is like a million different things, when its definition is so loose and the access is so complete and ubiquitous, it just creates this kind of, and you kind of have to almost like what you're doing. You're like, we're going to try to pull it back into a process that's a lot more containable and feels a little more organized and a little more like a traditional like adoption process within an organization, rather than just bleh, it's all out, all go all at the same time in a million different directions. Obviously that's going to feel chaotic. So I like the way you kind of help talk folks through back, whatever. Maybe some people that are way out in the deep end. Everybody should gather at least on the beach and near the water and like, oh, okay, great. How are we going to do this? And some people are going to just feel way more comfortable swimming on the deep end. And you're like, great, but I want to know kind of, you're going to go swim out there with a plan. Like you're not
Yeah.
just going to go wildly off into whatever.
Yeah.
Are there, so like on that vein, are there just some things as we're kind of thinking about the last takeaways for folks, like, are there things you would recommend that folks are doing themselves inside an organization right now? Just practical, like top 3 things you would want, and whatever, or if that doesn't make sense, like a framework that you'd like to suggest or resources you want me to point people to?
I think it makes more sense from my point of view to offer a couple tips. Basically, the truth is there are frameworks out there. There's lots. There's
Yeah,
there's a couple that I've created. There's a couple that I haven't created that I love and use.
right.
But there's so much out there, and so for the kind of person who wants to kind of go out like a sort of self starter, there's lots of stuff to find, to look for and find. But I would start with a couple kind of suggestions or tips. One is, or like, and these are, I don't think these are in any order, but one is try and get a sense of where you are compared to other nonprofits, not compared to other for-profit, not compared to companies and the for-profit world. It's just different. And it's especially different because this world that we're entering into with AI, I talk a lot about kind of values and values alignment
Mm-hmm.
and mission. And what we're talking about is ethics and like how the things that matter to an organization and the humans who work at that organization, how they then get kind of like lived and like actions. And it's okay, in my experience, it's totally normal and standard practice for there to be kind of like variations,
Oh yeah,
but you still have a sense of like my organization don't care that much about this issue but care a lot about that sort of thing.
right.
And when it comes to AI, because the way that AI exists in our reality in the US and Canada, it is very much a kind of a consumer centric AI universe.
Yeah.
So like in India, their approach to AI is much more like federal or national government layer and level in order to like kind of understand, like make payments to over 1 billion people where they need to, and like for health related like documentation and that kind of structure.
Thing.
That is not the way we understand or use or talk about AI in the US and Canada at all.
No.
And so number one, because it's so consumer centric,
Yeah.
and the AI companies are run by, it seems like, a particular type of human being,
You
there
might
are
say that.
there are like there just are ethical, basically kind of like ethical questions and issues that I think we really kind of have to talk about and have to name. And
Yeah.
so there's going to be some things like, like energy and environmental use. How important is that to us versus not? Get a sense of that. You don't need to have like one fixed answer, one answer that lasts forever, or one answer that everybody agrees to, but get a sense of like what are the categories and how much do they kind of matter? Like red
Mm-hmm.
light, green light, orange, or yellow, something like that.
For your org. Yeah. Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. For your
Yeah,
organization. Like, yeah,
exactly. For
everyone's
your
involved. Yeah.
organization.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then so that kind of orientation, especially from a values and ethical point of view, I think is helpful. And then also to try and get a sense, if it's possible in a safe way, to understand the range, like basically kind of how staff feel.
Yep.
And to back to your analogy of like being in the ocean, there are going to be people who are like kind of like, like past the whatever it's called,
Yeah, like the
the surf
safe
line or
zone or
whatever,
whatever. Yeah.
and they're really really comfortable, and like they're wearing a life jacket and they're using AI, and they're like, don't worry about me, like, Ryan, I don't need you to, like, you're kind of like, you're coming in and talking to the rest of the people at my organization, but
But I'm good.
understand
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
use AI, it's great. But I want them to come and
Yeah.
be a part of the conversation, partly because the like norms and language and psychological safety part, but also because they could be the perfect people to help hold hands with and guide the people in the car and on the beach into the shallow end. So
Right.
try and identify within this kind of staff context and like the team and the culture context, who is more comfortable, who's more of a kind of like expert level, and who might kind of play a role like in a, like, not like a buddy system, but like who can, like, part of the thing about AI and digital everything is this kind of like upskilling, this ongoing learning, that this like learning loop.
Yeah.
And so and so I think it's also a good idea to try and identify who some of those people might be, as well as one person or a structured layer of like who is responsible and accountable for the AI, right? Like the, like whether that's a, like, kind of like a working group or a person or
Right.
both, something like that.
Yep.
Some of those things are governance, operational, but also strategic. And then I think you can also, I'm a big fan of like, what might we use AI for? And I'm also a huge fan of like shared documentation, folks. Like, there are people who are using AI. There's a lot of shadow AI that's going on. They're often
Oh yeah.
using their personal email address or their personal account for ChatGPT or for Claude or whatever it is. They're using it for work stuff. Hopefully it's not
Right.
personal information and privacy based stuff. I
Right.
hope not. And we want to move those people away from that, but
Right.
also they're using it because it's making their jobs more efficient and effective. So we have
Right.
to recognize why they are doing it and
Exactly.
give them like a safe path to, like, they
Right.
can't, like, we shouldn't be kind of like reprimanding them, but we do want to make sure that they understand kind of like the risks and dangers and what like responsible use looks like. And so we want to create shared documentation. Like, fundraising based prompts are going to look really different from an HR and operations team and what they might use AI for. Let's just
Right.
start by recognizing some of these differences, and also start creating some shared documentation, as well as like dream up what pilots could look like, right? Like, what could we do? And some of this stuff is, I have to tell you, like, and I mean this in like a really good way, but it's so boring. It's not the sexiest stuff. It's
It
the
is
stuff that, it's just the stuff that makes people's actual lives actually easier.
so much
And
easier.
to me, that is sexy and not boring. But you
Hey,
have to kind of like recognize that.
I I totally agree. I think that's where we obviously are counseling folks to start as well, is start with some of the maybe least sexy, but
Yeah.
also where you're going to actually probably gain a lot more efficiency, time saving, all that kind of stuff. And no, we're not talking about taking anybody's job. No, it's just about helping everybody sort of free up some of that administrative like headache and mental load to be like, oh,
Yeah.
great, I breathe a little easier. I can do this a little bit more. I can do my other work that actually does require our beautiful brains to do the thing or to talk to people or do that human interaction piece that the computers can't. Free yourself up for that so you're able to do it. But I love a lot of the practical
Yeah.
tips, and sort of helping folks get started. Lots to think about, always. Great conversation. Just a lot of the sort of, I love the idea of just like before you dive in, or again, maybe, I would say at this point, most organizations have a very varied landscape of the deep ocean swimmers and the people in the car in the parking lot. And I think the biggest thing is just to help understand, like, figure out where you are
Yeah.
already as an organization today. That's the biggest
Orientation.
takeaway,
Yeah.
for listeners, is get a common language, start to set some ground rules, and just really take a temperature of where people are. Understand that, not a reprimanding, but definitely still encourage a curiosity mindset, but also really want to say, great, that's awesome. And we
Yeah.
maybe have decided that we're gonna, bring it in a little bit and just create a little bit of loose guardrails. So maybe there are some deep swimmers, that's fine, but we want to understand what they're doing and how they're doing it so it benefits, the whole organization and is done with the right care and in the right alignment with the values, of the
Yeah.
organization.
Exactly.
Perfect. Love it. Thank you so much for that. I'm excited to just continue to hear how things are going with you at the and your exploration and doing this with different organizations. I'd love to know more about your frameworks that you use. So we'll point people to your website in the blog post after this, but if people want to find you, Ryann Miller, Ryann with 2 N's. That's the real key to find this Ryann Miller. There are other Ryann Millers. There are other Jennifer Frasers. Good Lord. There are other Jennifer Frasers in Boulder, Colorado. Every time I go to the doctor, they're like, which one are you? I'm like, oh my God. So I feel you all day. But we're special. We're unique. We're good. And thank you so much for sharing your insights and your thoughts. It's a very exciting time, I find, to be doing this work and watching sort of this evolution that we're all in the midst of and a part of. So appreciate you and your insights. So
Thank you.
if anybody...
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So it's sparkandsignal.ca. So, because she's Canadian, eh?
I think I also bought the other domain, but I haven't
It's
downloaded it yet. Yeah, because I don't do the tech work.
Exactly. Like somebody will figure that out. I'll do that at some point.
Very techy.
But it's not CA. So if anyone, we'll get that in the notes for everybody. So again, thank you so much for being here. So next week, another episode of UnTangled. I'm very excited to have another longtime friend. I've been doing this for so long. I have 750,000 friends in the space, but everyone's doing really cool, interesting, amazing stuff with these tools. So it's like I have like kind of a great long list of folks to have on the show. Taylor Wilson's going to be here, who has probably the best title in the whole world, which is the Chief Shizzle Officer. I'm like, Taylor, at Creative Shizzle. It's all the shizzling happening over there. Longtime friend, and like she's doing really cool stuff with AI at her sort of design and marketing agency. Super fun. And we had a really great brainstorming session. She's going to get into AI without the hype. Same thing. She's like, what's actually working for real teams, and what she's seeing and what she's doing inside her agency to help bring a lot of these tools to bear and help create like efficiencies and great things are happening, and sort of just help us on those sides of the house. I'm excited to have Taylor join me next week. But Ryann, again, thank you so much for all of your insights and guidance.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Jen. It's been super fun chatting with you about this stuff. And people, if anyone does want to reach out, certainly my website, but also I'm on LinkedIn often enough. So feel free to kind of connect with me there, DM me or email me. You know, I'm easy to find.
Oh, I'm easy to find. That's my favorite National album, by the way. I'm easy to find. So on that note, everybody have a great rest of your Thursday. And we'll keep tuning in on the Thursdays at noon. We'll have another great, episodes coming up in the next month about AI and digital for the social good sector. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.